Okay, so we're going to begin. Everyone go to writing equations of lines. And we've done this before. Um, so this is where they give you a line, and we have to determine the equation of this line. And we have to write it in slope-intercept form. So we need to find the slope and the y-intercept. Y-intercept's easy. Where are we crossing the y-axis? -2. And now let's find the slope. They're even nice enough to give us points. I'm going to pick one furthest to the left. And I see that I go down 2 and to the right 3. So the slope is -2/3. So there's my equation. Y equals -2/3 x minus 2. So you'll have a couple of questions like that. Think like 5 or 6. So let's enter in that same answer. Y equals -2/3 x minus 2. That's our equation in slope-intercept form. Yes? Yeah. All right. So let's go on to the next question. I'm going to just back out and point out that the next question is something new, but we've been working on it. Huh? Oh, it's not letting you log in. How many tabs do you have open? If you have a lot of tabs open, close them up. Try it. That's the thing. You only have 3 tabs now, remember? Only have 3 tabs in class. So use them sparingly. Okay. Just so you don't go here, there, and everywhere. All right. Everybody, let's work on this one. So we're going to rewrite this in slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. All right. So we have this in what's called standard form. We'll get into standard form more later on in a couple weeks. But this is another way of writing a linear equation. And we want to solve for y. We want to get rid of the 8x and the 20 here. So the first thing we're going to do is get rid of 8x. So subtract 8x from both sides. Okay. Now, the thing is, what we get is -20 y equals negative, on the right side, I have 40 and -8x. They're unlike terms. I can't make that into one thing. So I'm just going to write -8x. And then it's +40, so plus 40. Okay, so I got that now. All I did was subtract 8x. Now I want to get rid of the -20. How do I do that? Yes?
You divide -20 by -8 and by 40?
Yes. Now let's divide it. I'm going to just divide it everywhere. And we get rid of the -20 here, which leaves us with y. Over on the other side, we have to reduce if we can, and we can. So this becomes 2/5, +2/5 x, right? And then we can reduce it here. It's 40 over 20, so that's -2. Positive divided by negative. So now the equation is in slope-intercept form. The slope is 2/5. The y-intercept is -2. Okay, so let's go ahead and write that one down. So for this one, I don't know, you may want to just have some scratch paper handy. I don't know that you can do this all mentally. Y equals 2/5 x minus 2. And you'll have about 6 of those to do. Any questions though? Okay. It's always going to be the same process. Add or subtract away the x term and then divide by whatever the coefficient of y is. Sometimes it'll be negative, like this one. All right. So, did it work? Yep. Now, the next 4 questions are just analyzing a situation with a graph. So interpret linear graph in context. So they'll give us some sort of situation, like this one. Tyler signed up for the streaming music service where there's a fixed cost for monthly membership and a cost per song downloaded. His total cost is given by the linear graph below. What does the y-intercept in the graph represent? Okay, so let's look at the graph first of all. So it looks like on the y-axis it's total cost per month. And then it's broken down into songs, 1 song, 2 song, etc. And they're asking us for the y-intercept. Where is the y-intercept? Yeah. So it's one of these situations. The base cost of the streaming service per month, the change in the total cost for every 1 additional download, the cost to download 100 songs, a total cost of $9.49 per month when 1 song is downloaded. Well, that one we could rule out right away. Let's go back to what they said about the streaming service. How does the streaming service work? What are you paying? Yeah, like a fixed monthly membership. So you got to pay that. And then what else?
The cost per song.
Yeah, the cost per song. So which of those seems reasonable? The monthly membership cost or the cost per song for the $7.99? What do you think? This is where the y-intercept is. And you're paying like $8. Is that per song or is that what you pay a month? Yeah. So let's go with base cost of the streaming service per month. Okay, you start $7.99 and then it goes up a certain amount based on each song. It sounds like it's a lot of money per song. But that's not for me to decide. Does anything else seem reasonable here? Total cost to download 100 songs. No, that's okay. So you'll be interpreting what the y-intercept means in this situation. Let's go with that. And lo and behold, that's it. Remember, y-intercept is usually a starting point. So it's when x is 0, what's going on, and what does that mean? Okay. So let's do the next one. We have another situation for example 4. So click on example 4. At the beginning of spring, Marilyn planted a small sunflower in her backyard. The graph below represents the sunflower's height in inches after X weeks. What does the slope of the line represent? So we're measuring on the y-axis height in inches, and the x-axis is time in weeks. So we want to know what the slope represents. How are we calculating slope? We're doing rise over run. What are we measuring on the rise? The height. What are we measuring on the run? Weeks, right? So a slope is always a rate. So the slope, I'll call it M, is height, because that's on the y-axis, over weeks. So it's height per week. Think about that. That's what the slope is, height per week in this situation. So let's take a look. So is the slope the sunflower's final height? Do you think that's it? No, some of you are shaking your head no. The sunflower's height after 1 week? That's a possibility. Maybe that. The sunflower's height when it was planted. Okay. That would be more the y-intercept. When it was planted was times 0. So that would be this. That would be the y-intercept. They were asking us y-intercept. That would definitely be that one. The change in the sunflower's height for every 1 additional week. That seems reasonable too. Which one do you think is the correct answer? The sunflower's height after 1 week, or the change in the sunflower's height for every 1 week? Additional week, rather. Which one do you think seems better? Definitely, I would say not this one. Not this one. Is it? I think the change is the word you want to see in there, because a rate of change measures change, how much it's growing per week.
But also the question said weeks and not just 1 week.
Yeah, and this kind of threw it off too. So let's say the last one. So make sure you look for those keywords: change, every. That will be a clue that you're looking for the slope or rate of change. Okay, let's go with that one. And we got it. Okay. 2 more to go. Interpret linear graph. Julia is preheating her oven before using to bake. Julia created the following linear graph, because we all make linear graphs when we bake, to predict the final temperature after X minutes. What is the meaning of the Y value X equals 1? So here it is, measuring temperature in Fahrenheit on the y-axis, time in minutes, and we want to know what it means when what's Y when X equals 1? Okay, so X equals 1 is here. It's here. And that gets us here. So basically we have 1 and 100. And remember what we're measuring. What are we measuring on the x-axis? Minutes. Time. What are we measuring here? Temperature. In degrees Fahrenheit. So let's see if we get anything. Look it over and make a choice. Which is the most reasonable? The temperature of the oven it doesn't start there. The oven's temperature after 1 minute. I think that's it. Let's look at the other ones just to be safe. The rate of change, no. Rate of change is slope. The change in minutes for every 1 degree Fahrenheit. Yeah, I think it's this one. I think that's what we do when X is 1, we know it's 100 degrees. All right, let's try it. Okay, and then we have one more. There's a roughly linear relationship between the number of times a species of cricket will chirp in 1 minute and the temperature outside as expressed in the graph. What is the meaning of the x value when y equals 65? So this time we're starting measuring the y-axis and seeing what it means here. Okay, and take a look. We're measuring temperature here, right? Again, but what are we measuring on the x-axis? Chirps per minute. Okay, so let's look for 65. 65 is here. That's a temperature. And then we'll go down here. And this is just a rough estimate. So somewhere between 80 and 100. So somewhere between there. So when it chirps somewhere between something in the 90s, let's say, somewhere in the 90s, the temperature is about what? What's the temperature when it's about 90 degrees? How many chirps would it, or when it's 65 degrees, how many times would it chirp? Between 80 and 100, say 90-ish. All right, let's see what we get. The number of times the cricket could be expected to chirp in 1 minute if it's 94.3 degrees. No, that can't be it because it was 65 degrees. The expected temperature in degrees Fahrenheit if the cricket has chirped 94.3 times per minute. Okay, that's reasonable because that's kind of where we landed, right? Between 80 and 100. The expected temperature in degrees Fahrenheit if the cricket has chirped 65 times per minute. Actually, the temperature was 65. So far, the only one that seems reasonable is the second one. Let's look at the last choice. The number of times the cricket chirped could be expected. The number of times the cricket could be expected to chirp in 1 minute if the temperature is 65 degrees. I think that's it. So at 65 degrees, we would expect it to chirp somewhere in here. So I think the last choice is the best. Let's try. Maybe I'm wrong. Oh, that's it. Okay. So now you have, like for example, you have 6 of these. And once you're done with these 6, go on to the next skills. So you have 6, 6, and then 8 of those questions that we just did. Okay? So that is the assignment for today. So go ahead and work on that. And that's the assignment.